happy Women's History Month. And thank you for joining me. And before I get started, I'd just like to thank Deepa for inviting me to this event and for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all and bend your ear today. So what am I going to be talking to you about? And we see a lot of the same themes and a lot of the same message that London and Jessica have conveyed. But hopefully I can give you some examples from what I have tried and what has worked for me and my team. And really the theme is experimentation and making small changes if the large ones aren't available to you in the moment, and see how they can support you on your path to success. And the metaphor here is going to be baking and cooking. Not that I'm a great cook or baker, but I do love experimenting with these. And usually I take, I do my own spin on the prescribed recipe. So that's really the theme today. So let's get going. Before I proceed, I should give you a little bit more information about what I do. So I work for Adobe, as Deepa mentioned. I'm a senior engineering manager there. And as Jessica said, all of what you'll hear today is my opinion. None of it can be tied back to Adobe. So please take it just as something that I feel and I believe in. But what have I done so far? So I've been here for 11 years. And I have worked on several products, mainly mobile products. So that's Adobe Revel, GroupX, and Comp. These were on iOS and Android. And then we moved to developing web apps and services. And so I worked on the Photoshop Discover panel. And currently, I'm working as an engineering manager leading one of the cloud services teams at Adobe. So first things first, I think the theme for this year is just something that resonates with me very much. And I hope what I have to share with you comes across as intended, a set of suggestions that can hopefully enable some progress with experimentation. And by no means are these, prescriptions, because we all have a unique story. We come from different backgrounds, we have different ways of achieving success, and we have different ambitions. So it makes sense for our careers to be as individualistic as we are. So, the same theme applies to teams as well. And now, as a manager for a team, I try and apply the same experimentation mindset to how I build my teams as well. And just to call out, this what I'll be talking about here is not just my experience alone, it's also what my team has experienced, what I have observed in my leaders, as I'm still growing, and I'm hoping that what I share with you today can help you as well. And this talk is my attempt at progress without perfection. I couldn't add it earlier, Deepa, but this is the first talk that I'm giving to a large audience is this. And in a forum such as this, again, I'm thankful for the opportunity, and hopefully I'll make some progress. So the first theme I'd like to touch upon is this concept of a la carte careers, or non-linearity of careers. And Jessica alluded to this a little bit in her talk as well. Of course, she had some major changes in her career, and those are great, but maybe not all of us desire such drastic changes or are able to make such drastic changes. But even microscopic changes, or those that seem microscopic or small, can have a lot of impact on how you grow and how you're able to support your career. So the concept here is micro nonlinearity, which is just putting fancily the concept of experimentation. So, as children, we change careers often. So just taking my example, I have wanted to be an F1 race car driver, a fighter pilot, an investigative journalist, all within the span of, I think, 6 months before I finally decided to do computer science. And so the question I ask is, why do we give up that penchant for experimentation when, we grow up? Why can't we continue that practice and that curiosity for trying something new as we grow in our careers? And again, as I mentioned earlier, drastic changes may not always be feasible, but small detours can be very enriching. So, with that, I'd like to talk to you about my story with trying a different role. And again, as I mentioned, this was a small change. It wasn't. I haven't changed companies in 11 years. I'm very happy working at Adobe, but I was curious to try a different role. So I changed roles from being a developer to a program manager. And this was part of a 6-month job rotation program. It came as an offhand suggestion from my then manager, who was like, hey, you could try program management at some point and see how you do. You might have some skills that you could apply there. And this was about a year into my job at Adobe, and I was just, it was a very uh, impactful but stressful project that I was coming off of, and I just felt like trying something new. So I went ahead and did that. And so I, took on the role of a program manager, same team, same project, but what a different perspective, right? So, here I had exposure to the kinds of processes that I didn't really think about as a developer. So I was looking at things from a different level of abstraction, paying more attention to planning, scheduling, prioritization, and dependencies from a much higher view than I was used to. One thing that also stood out to me was the fact that, sorry, there's some trouble with my presentation. Okay. The role had all the responsibility, but really none of the authority. So, as a program manager, you're expected to keep projects on schedule, keep things moving, but you don't really have any authority over the people who are implementing the code, building the solutions, and building the products. So, it gave me exposure to a different way of thinking about things. What was the value that I got from the role? So the first thing was exposure to processes, as I mentioned, I didn't think about. So this could be legal sprints. It could be getting privacy and security reviews, managing dependencies, schedules, etc. Things that I just didn't worry about as an individual contributor. Insight into aspects of delivering products like building brand, marketing, outside of code, right? Appreciation again for the role and its unique challenges, the ability to keep things moving when you don't have authority. It takes time to develop, and it is a skill that we can apply to other roles as well, but being a program manager really brings that to the forefront. Exercise for skills that were underutilized as an engineer, and this may not be true for everyone, but skills of conflict management, relationship building, those are things that I was able to exercise when I was working as a program manager for this job rotation. The fifth value that I got out of this was the realization that this role just wasn't right for me, at least at that time. I missed writing code and delivering the product itself. Experience that I was able to apply later. So now, as an engineering manager, having insight into what program needs to do and the kinds of other processes that need to be in place for a successful product is invaluable experience for me. And the seventh thing that came out of this was consideration for opportunities in the future. So if there are opportunities for a program management position, should I want to switch to that, I now have a foot in the door, if you will, because I have experienced what it is to do that role, and I can, apply for those positions with some confidence in the future if I choose to. So the takeaways: ask and look for micro opportunities to experiment. If they aren't there, build them yourself. A/B test your career, and just with A/B testing a feature on a product, you have to give the experiment enough time and consideration before you decide to quit. That said, not all experiments are successful. So if you don't succeed or you don't like what you tried, reset and then try again. The second major theme is technology du jour. So the theme here is about the ever-changing nature of our industry. And without going very far back, we can look at the advent of the internet, mobile phones and applications, cloud computing, the rise of machine learning and AI, and now the blockchain. These have all been pivotal changes that are changing the industry we work in very fundamental ways. So, to keep up with this, continuous education and reinvention has to be a way of life. And we applying that to our careers behooves us as well. We need to anticipate change. So, in this case, I'd like to give you an example of my team and the change that we went through. So, as I mentioned, I've worked on several mobile apps, and I've pretty much worked with the same team in my 11 years. And our team was known for delivering iOS and Android apps for Adobe. We were very good at it. Um, we pivoted to building web apps and services. So an opportunity came up for growth, and our leader offered us up as being the team that will build this next generation web app and set of services for Adobe. And I have to say, establishing the knowledge and confidence was hard work. This team had no idea of building and deploying modern web applications, learning frameworks like React, Redux, learning about AWS, cloud services deployment. It was tough work, but to date, it has been our most impactful project. And we were able to work through this, retrain ourselves, and then have impact. And it's something that we're really proud of. Another example is data science and ML. So here I'd like to credit our leaders and my leaders especially because their foresight played a huge role in preparing us for the change that was approaching our industry with data science and ML. My manager and leaders pushed the team to take the courses and learn data science and machine learning, even though it didn't directly apply to what we were doing at that time. We started a machine learning skunk works group, and we just developed models, applied those to our product, and created opportunities for innovation and impact. Now, it is one of the areas of focus for the larger org and the larger team. So this is a great example of where you might want to try a small experiment. It could just be you and one more coworker that are trying something new. And of course, support from your leadership is important, but make a good case for it, and I'm sure you'll get the support you need. So again, the takeaways from the disruption theme are: we have to be prepared to thrive in a changing environment. One aspect of that is carving out opportunities for skunk work projects. And this may not be always possible, but like I said, you can do it on a smaller scale if it isn't possible on a larger one. And then encourage yourself and your teams to stay current and re-educate as often as you can. The third theme is team fusion. So here again, we're applying the same concepts of experimentation and going off the beaten path when you are bringing together teams. And here I'm speaking more as an engineering manager and someone who is hiring and composing and building teams. Stronger, bolder teams. How can we get there? Look for candidates with non-traditional backgrounds, right? People who are changing their careers, teaching themselves, attending boot camps. They're hungry for change and progress. And I think some of those candidates have been really strong additions to our teams. Hire from smaller schools. No, don't just look at Ivy League schools and the big names. There may be several reasons why someone has attended a community college or a smaller school that you have never heard of. but they may be exactly what your team needs in terms of diversity of experience and opinion. Um, so do look at those smaller schools when you're hiring. The third point is employ unconventional interview processes. And this might be a no brainer, but for so many of us who have gone through whiteboarding interviews, it doesn't work for everybody. So use other techniques like take home assignments, perhaps not as a replacement, but as an accompaniment to your interview process. And lastly, engage with diversity programs if they are available to you where you work or even outside of that. Programs like GDG, Women Tech Makers, are great examples as well. So, an example with teams and applying the growth mindset, our team, well established, very experienced engineers, just could not take to Scrum. And the strictness of the process there when compared with something like Kanban. So we decided early on that Kanban is going to be what we use, where there isn't as much focus on those 2 week sprints, discarding a sprint if the scope changes, etc. And Kanban has just worked fabulously well for our team. So this is an example of where you're adapting process to the team and not the other way around. Consider cross-training and reassignment to utilize each individual's strengths better. And realize that some people are specialists, not generalists. You, they may not thrive in a constantly changing environment where they are asked to do this and then do that. They want to focus on one thing and get really good at it. And we need to be, as managers, we need to be able to adapt to that. Not just managers, as leads as well. And I'm sure some of you are aiming to be leads and senior engineers. As folks in those roles, you should look at cross training and reassignment to see how people can do better at their jobs. And then, of course, coach and groom for growth. This again is an example from our team. When you're looking to grow and promote, look within the team and plan for it. Coach and groom the individuals that have worked with you to be ready for those promotions when they're available, rather than looking outside. And I think my leadership has done a great job of that. So the takeaways: value potential and motivation over experience and sometimes skill. Because as I mentioned, the skills that we need to use and learn change constantly. There are other skills and other aspects of what people bring to the table, like potential and motivation, that are harder to change. Adapt your process to the team and not the other way around. And lead the square pegs to success in a round hole world. Find ways for people to be successful and impactful, even if they the cookie cutter definition of an engineer or UI designer, what have you. The fourth theme is play the sous chef. And this actually goes to both of the next topics that I'd like to talk to you about. So playing a sous chef is really about apprenticing, shadowing, and building a support system. Right? Nurture your support system. Build a network of those that be your sounding boards and help you learn and grow. And give that back. Of that support system, identify a smaller set of individuals who can be your advisory group, your mentors. Also look for champions. They are not the same thing. Champions are people who can direct opportunities your way and help you grow. I have been fortunate enough to have great mentors and champions during my 11 years at Adobe. Success is due to what they have been able to bring my way, and I'm hoping I can give some of that back. Build your reputation. In order to find those mentors and champions and for them to speak on your behalf, you have to have a great track record of what you've done before, how you've achieved success, and how you've been genuine and accountable. And then earn trust. For someone, again, to speak up on your behalf, you'll be up to do what it takes for that opportunity that's being presented and being pushed your way. So my story is that of a shadow program that I did at Adobe last year. I was able to shadow somebody who was in a very different part of the business. And this is just such a great program. I'm sure there are very many others like it, and it's hard for us to find the time to engage. I can't recommend it enough. It gave me exposure to a different aspect of the business and a very different leadership style as well. It gave me insight into how other teams operate. This was a marketing team. I come from an engineering organization. It was very interesting to see how they work together, what the team dynamics are like, how they're adapting to remote work as well. And then lastly, but not the least, the appreciation for the perspectives across a large organization. Um, it's really interesting how differently we can perceive success and the ways we can get there, even within the same company, if our function is different. Marketing has a totally different perspective on what success means from what engineering feels. And it's great to have this overall big picture view of what success means. I'm thinking. So the takeaways then. Rely on your network and your support system to expose you to opportunities if you don't see them in front of you right away. Give back. Again, you can mentor somebody in your team, take on small opportunities to teach somebody what you have learned over the years. Apply lessons from other parts of the business. You don't need to be in a silo, you don't need to have your blinders on. There are many lessons to be learned from other aspects of the business as well. So keep your eyes open and absorb. Participate in or build your own shadow programs. And the last thing, going back to my baking metaphor, don't forget the basics. Don't forget those must have ingredients for your recipe to success. What are those? So, in my mind, it is a strong foundation. When you want to experiment, you want to shake things up a little bit, you want your foundation to be really, really strong. And for me, that comes in two ways. One is your own skill set, and how well you're able to adapt to change and how strong your foundation is. But it's also the people you surround yourself with. For example, I have, as I mentioned, we've worked through several projects, but my team has been the same, and I love working with these people. And they are the main reason that I've stayed at Adobe so long. But think about keeping your core capabilities and the value that you bring very strong. Stay accountable for your work, whether it's an experiment, whether it's a job rotation or a full time role. Be passionate and committed. And then, last but not the least, follow through on what you commit to and give these experiments your all to see results. And that brings me to the end of my talk. Are there any questions?
Neha, thank you so much. I know I had a network issue, but I got it figured out now. So yeah, it